Good morning. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner. Today is Thursday, the 17th, and I know I'm always looking up there because I look out the window, but today feels like a fall day, except it's really hot. So it's like 85 degrees, but it's overcast, and yes, it's still raining. We had a big storm yesterday. So I hope everywhere else people are having a nice summery day. At least we get the warmth, but it's wet and rainy. Something on my microphone here. I don't know what that is. So let's see. As the title indicated, I will be speaking about cystitis today. A lot of people call it just UTI. I know a lot of people don't know what UTI stands for because they tell me that. So it stands for urinary tract infection. A urinary tract infection, or UTI, is a big generic term for an infection anywhere in the urinary system. So that could be urethra, bladder, ureters, and kidney. A cystitis is specifically an infection of the bladder, urinary bladder. So I'm speaking about cystitis or bladder infection, UTI, today because probably about 2 or 3 times a day I'll have someone come in with a bladder infection or cystitis. Bladder infection can potentially have symptoms, or it can potentially not have any symptoms, or it can be anywhere in between. So a bladder infection occurs when bacteria gets into the bladder and it's able to multiply, grow, and cause an inflammatory response. Now, everyone gets bacteria rubbed into the urethra, which is the conduit or the tube or the passage between the outside environment and the bladder. The bladder is a sterile environment, so there is not supposed to be any bacteria at all in the bladder. Urine is sterile. I think a lot of people who are into survival methods and the bug out scenario, they know that in desperate situations they can drink urine because urine is sterile. There's no bacteria in urine, so they can use urine as a source of fluid and hydration. So, everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, I'm only speaking about women, gynecologists. Men are it's less common for them to have bladder infections, but all women get bacteria rubbed into the urethra throughout the day from general daily activities. So exercise, walking, especially if there's any increased friction. So thong underwear, tight jeans, swimsuits. I think most people know intercourse will do it. So any kind of friction in the genital area will rub bacteria into the urethra. The bacteria that gets rubbed into the urethra is predominantly from the vagina, which is full of bacteria, from the intestines, or from stool from the rectum, which is full of bacteria, or from the skin, which is full of bacteria. So those 3 bacterial-laden areas are the usual sources of bacteria getting into the urethra. If that bacteria is allowed to stay in the urethra for any reasonable amount of time, it will ascend or climb up into the bladder. Now, as I tell everyone, it's kind of like the itsy bitsy spider story, because if you get bacteria in the urethra, that's not a big deal. You should stay well hydrated and urinate frequently so that you're constantly washing the bacteria out. So the bacteria climbs up the pipe and then your urine washes it back out. So it's like the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout, down came the rain and washed the spider out. So it's the same story. The catch is, if someone is not well hydrated, they don't drink much fluids, their bladder's not going to get full, they're not going to urinate regularly, and that will give the bacteria enough time to climb up into the bladder, set up shop, and build up into an infection. So if someone is well hydrated, they should urinate relatively frequently, and frequently for a full bladder would be at least every 2 hours, every 2 to 3 hours of full bladder. And if they're well hydrated, the urine should be fairly clear like water. It should not be dark like lemonade. If your urine is dark like lemonade, it means it's still concentrated, and it's concentrated because you're not diluting it, and you're not diluting it because you're not drinking enough fluids. So if you're well hydrated, your bladder should get full. Your urine should be fairly clear, either pale lemonade or clear like water. and you should urinate every 2 to 3 hours. So if someone is dehydrated, they're not going to urinate frequently enough because their body's trying to hold on to all of the fluids that it can, and the bacteria will be allowed to set up shop and build into an infection. Now, someone can be well hydrated, but they can have the undesirable habit of holding their urine. So when they first feel the urge to go, they don't go and they hold it. And the bladder can get quite stretched out, and what they're doing is they're allowing their urine to become stagnant. So the bacteria climbs up into the bladder, it builds up shot. You're not washing it out, you're letting the bladder just get overfilled. The urine is stagnant, and yes, bacteria can build up. So you can stay well hydrated, but if you don't urinate regularly, then bacteria will also be allowed to build up, set up shop, cause an infection. The primary way to prevent a bladder infection is to stay well hydrated, urinate when you feel the first sensation to urinate, and to avoid increased friction, so increased propensity to rub bacteria up into the urethra. So no tight clothing, thong underwear, avoid tight jeans, tight clothing. If you're swimming at the beach or at the lake, try not to stay in your swim clothes longer than you have to. And with intercourse, try to urinate after intercourse, because that's an activity of increased friction. It will always rub bacteria into the urethra, so urinate after intercourse to wash that bacteria out. That's the introduction for cystitis today. I'm going to stop there because we're starting office hours, and I will come back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, and continue the presentation on cystitis, a bladder infection, UTI. Thank you for watching. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner. Please check out the YouTube channel. That's also GYN Corner. We have a link here on the page for the YouTube channel, and we also have a link on the page for the website for the office. That's midtowngyn.com. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day. Stay dry if you're in the tri-state area.